Akhi, many Muslims don't really understand Islam, and one of the reasons that they get confused is that they don't understand what the mission of the prophets were in the first place. And so they don't understand, okay, why were the prophets attacked? Why were the prophets slandered against? How does all what they were doing connect with the greater mission of Islam? So let me just ask you, like, what do you think the mission of the prophets was?
I think it was to spread the message, relay the message of Islam, spread the word of Allah.
Okay, but what does that mean? Like, how does that look like?
Maybe by walking around, just making dawah
Yeah?
to people, starting with the people that they trusted the most, possibly, and then gradually growing.
Let me ask you a question. If you walk around today in the world, you go to Times Square, you go to Young Street, Dundas, and you walk around and you try to explain Islam to people, you have a Quran, are people gonna kill you? Are people gonna persecute you?
I think maybe some people will, but
Yeah,
not
somebody might come spit at you or something, but most people would be, pretty fine with it. Yeah.
They wouldn't care too much.
Yeah. But the question now is, like, I have to ask you, why were the prophets, like the Prophet ﷺ, why were they persecuted so much? Why do you think, like, just going around explaining to people there's one God, I'm his messenger, these are the rules you should follow in your life, why were there like some group of people that came and said, no, you cannot do this is wrong?
I think they just believed too much in what they believed in before Islam.
Yeah?
Possibly. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me give you a counterexample.
Okay.
There was a man who was from the Muwahhideen, because there were few Muwahhideen before the Prophet ﷺ. Most people don't know about them. They were the Hunafa. They're called the Hunafa because they were going back to Tawheed like Ibrahim ﷺ, where they were still upon this idea that there's one God. And they each have their own stories. One of them, by the way, is Waraqa ibn Nawfal, the one who tells the Prophet ﷺ, the first one to tell him, hey, this means you're a prophet. But anyway, one of them used to do street da'wah. Like, he used to believe in Quraysh. This is when the Prophet ﷺ was still just a kid. He would go around saying there's one God, these idols are nothing, this is not real Islam, or this is not the real understanding of the world. And yeah, like, there are stories of him getting, a little bit harassed and so on, but there wasn't a government campaign to persecute him. Yeah. So the question is okay, why was there a government campaign against the Prophet ﷺ? Like, they were boycotted, his people were tortured, every kind of slander and accusation and legal trial was faced by the Prophet ﷺ. So why then? What incited this, really? Like, this is what we want to try to understand.
So, I don't know, but I want to make the assumption that it's possibly because of his character prior to Islam. Him being the most honest, the most trustworthy.
Yeah.
That works against them a lot, for example.
I think that could be part of it, in the sense that he was a very influential person in society, right? But I want you to zoom out just a little bit, in the sense that the Prophet ﷺ was not simply content with just individuals accepting Islam. The Prophet ﷺ came with a very direct message. You said he came to spread the message of Allah, but what is the message of Allah? That's really what we need to understand. When you understand the message of Allah really, that's when you understand why the prophets faced such animosity from the power brokers in their societies. Because the message of Allah is that God is king, and the prophet is the one that comes and implements his law. What does that mean? It means that the prophet comes to society and says, I should be in charge. Me, I'm the ruler, not you. Like, the government, the whole power structure, because revelation said so, is illegitimate. Like, any ruler, any king, if they hear this, they're gonna go crazy, they're gonna go bananas, man, right? This is why Al-Muthanna ibn al-Haritha, radiyallahu an, he was from one of the tribes that the Prophet ﷺ was seeking the help from before he got to the people of Medina. And he said to the Prophet, surely you have come with a matter that the kings hate. Well, why do the kings hate it? Well, because the message of Islam is a political message that overturns the current power structure and reforms the power structure to one that is based on the Islamic law, that is based on the idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the king, right? And that message is like, it becomes obvious. Either the ruler is somebody who's gonna accept Islam, accept Allah, accept Tawheed, and humble himself, like the people of Medina did, or they're gonna see that this is the threat and the challenge that it is. A challenge to their authority, a challenge to their system. Quraysh wanted to maintain the status quo. That's why the prophets, when they come to societies, like, let me tell you, who's more likely to follow a prophet, a poor guy or a rich guy?
Poor guy.
Why?
Usually there's like the idea that poor people are usually closer to God because they're struggling and they're suffering and they need that sense of hope, and
they need that sense of hope is the closest thing you said, which is correct, which is that like they have nothing to lose, really. The poor person, like when there's a message of hope, when somebody comes to overturn society, what they want nothing to do with the current society. The current society is what caused them to become poor in the first place, is what caused them to fall into the injustice that they're falling into in the first place. So of course, they're going to be on the team of anybody that comes along and says, we're going to overturn the current power structure. And definitely the rich people, on the other hand, have everything to lose from their perspective, right? This is why, I reflect about Sa'd ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, like why is his reward so big? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, when he died, his soul shook the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because this was a guy, he was a shaheed, but other Sahaba were shuhada. He was an early believer in Islam, other Sahaba were early believers, but this guy, he had the choice to accept the rule of the Prophet ﷺ or to keep himself as the ruler, keep himself as part of the elites of Medina. But no, he willingly said, Prophet, you take the lead. And for that, we remember his name. He becomes immortalized in history. But all these other rulers, all these other tribal leaders in Arabia, no one remembers their names. And this is a lesson in Islam, that when what you sacrifice for the sake of Allah, Allah will give you in multiples in this dunya before the next. So I just really wanted to impress upon you really that the message of the prophets came to challenge society. It was not just a spiritual medicine for people. It wasn't just like a personal set of do's and don'ts. It wasn't just like John and Jane convert to Islam and this is da'wah. This is not da'wah. Da'wah is when you call society to Islam and all of Islam. Calling one person to Islam is a great action. It's a sunnah, right? And it's a fard kifaya really to call like individuals to come accept this deen. But the da'wah, like this big word that we all kind of, our hearts shake when we hear it, is a project to bring Islam into implementation. And that's a political question. That's really all I had.
Jazakallahu khair.
Wa iyaakum habibi. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.